Come on now. Go live. Okay, we are live. Oh, background has changed back. Did you change that back? Or I never changed it, I don't think. So the background was from the break that Church and Cav did. By the way, everybody, this is Gather the Nerds, episode 178, 3 weeks lost behind. It's been busy for a lot of us, and sorry for the delay. Definitely not our plan. We would love to keep it as steady as possible, but life happens, and life has happened a lot for all of us here recently, just with everything going on. Last night, many of us got to experience the sound of our people here in Oklahoma. And for those that are not from Oklahoma, that is the sound of the tornado sirens. And you have two choices in Oklahoma when that happens. You either, one, go outside and watch, or two, you get in your hidey hole. And so years ago, I would have just walked outside and tried to figure out where it was and been really dumb about it. But having my kiddo around, I can't do that. So how did you guys fare last night?
Good. We ran into our hidey hole, and we were comfortable doing so because Church was sending us pictures from outside. So he was apparently keeping an eye on the skies for us.
There's always one.
There's always one.
Yeah. We were
There was
sitting on the couch. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
There was a bit of an injury when we were trying to get into the closet because Hannah grabbed the cats and was trying to struggle with them, and she'll be out for a little while, but she'll be okay.
We did the same thing, trying to get the dog into our storm shelter. I have a cut like right here. It's not really a cut; it's more like a scrape, but it's just a long scrape, and it's from I think pulling her in, and her fighting and all that stuff. So super fun. But it's springtime in Oklahoma, and that happens. So Sam and I were just talking about the hodgepodge of things that we have on the agenda. And because we're not with our normal mixture of people, he and I are going to just wing it. We're going to just talk about kind of whatever pops in our mind on the agenda that we want to talk about. Some of the stuff that will be upcoming in the future will be the Zack Snyder cut. And by the way, I love the header.
Oh yeah,
that you put on the agenda. It's Zack Snyder's Captain America. So quite comical. But at some point we will talk about the Snyder Cut of Justice League. I think we all kind of feel like we want Cav's take on it because I'll be honest, I was completely hesitant to watch it again because I was really disappointed in the first one. And so we'll just leave it at that and wait for further comments as we go. One of the things that I thought was really exciting from a couple of weeks ago, Sam, was the fact that Penguin Random House is jumping into comic book distribution. While I don't necessarily know how that all plays out for the current distribution system, I always think it's a good idea for more people to get involved. Keeps prices competitive, and then also potentially helps those indie labels that people like and things like that get a foothold in the market. Whereas if you're going strictly through Diamond or anyone else, it may create issues doing that just because you're competing with the likes of Marvel and DC. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Anything, Sam, at all? Because
I mean, nothing.
The thing is I don't really know necessarily what the benefit is one way or the other. I just know that it's significant that Marvel and Penguin Random House collaboratively sign a deal because that's going to benefit both of them.
Well, and I think the part of the significance of this is that previously DC had already left Diamond as their publisher. So I mean, that's, like you said, kind of expanding the industry a little bit, especially right now. Things are tough everywhere, and I'm sure that's hitting them as well. And I really don't have a whole lot of opinion on how they handle things, but as long as it keeps the comics printing, I guess it's good for everybody, right?
Right, exactly. And I think it's important to note though that with COVID-19, it's really disrupted a lot of things that a lot of people don't normally take into account. For example, things that we've ordered from places are delaying their time getting here, either due to quarantine measures and or people being overworked, or where they're working is shut down, so it makes doing the job difficult. And last year, Diamond did that very thing. Now, of course, last year in the midst of everything, a lot was shut down for the sake of protecting everybody, because we just didn't really know what was going to happen. And I think that kind of led this pathway. And, it's part of it. It's business. It's an unfortunate part of what happened. But hopefully Diamond sticks around and we get a very diverse and strong comic book and graphic novel distribution, because who doesn't need those? I know I do. I've got 3 boxes sitting behind me right over there. Well, there. So, we definitely want to keep them going. Okay. The next thing I'm going to tell you flat out, I have not seen the Long Halloween trailer yet.
Oh.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I watched it. Actually, I watched it this morning.
You watched it this morning. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to watch it while you kind of give me your thoughts on what's exciting about this animated series.
Oh, well, I have
Do you not
nothing
have any
to
thoughts?
provide as far as I don't know the story, so.
Well, okay. So, but that's exactly where I'm at. I don't know the story either. So, does that mean you're excited? Does that mean that you're not? I mean, how do you see this?
I mean, not to talk about the Snyder Cut, but to be honest, I'm needing something good. I shouldn't say good. Something different to get me back interested in the DC universe again. And I think it does look really interesting. I think they've always been real strong, DC, on the animated side. So
absolutely.
I am excited just for that reason. It's good to have something to look forward to that's, probably going to be exciting.
Makes sense. Well, for me, I'm in the same place you are. I don't have any real opinion on it whatsoever. And for me, I think the fact that they're leading out with a story that I would say probably the average Batman watcher is not familiar with, and doing it well, because the visual quality of the cartoon looks amazing. I mean, DC, like you said, has always been very strong with their animated series. It's just been something that they've really nailed that others haven't. And I think it's smart of them to do this, especially after kind of where we ended up with, a Snyder Cut doesn't exist and now all of a sudden it does, Mm-hmm. So I'm excited about it. I don't know anything about the story, and that's kind of where I feel like we're at with as a podcast. There's been a lot of Batman news, and I'm not a Batman super fan. Like, I just don't know a lot about it.
The big thing about this one is that Batman is going to be portrayed by, isn't this one where it's Jensen Ackles?
Yes.
And so everybody's really excited about seeing him as Batman, and I mean,
because he was previously the Red Hood. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be great
if you think about it. He's
going to do well. Yeah. That's
you basically got somebody that was a villain that's now the hero. So that's interesting. I'm excited. I hope that whenever it comes out that it's a success. I'm sure it will be. But like I said, I know that DC has struggled. The only thing that I kind of get over with DC is just the retelling of the story. And I don't necessarily know that the Long Halloween's ever been told in a cartoon series. But that's the thing that kills me about Batman every time is I've got to watch his parents die. And at some point he's got to turn into the Bat.
Well, no. This one, we don't get any of that. I'm pretty sure from the trailer, it's going to be, it's Harvey Dent, and it's going back to, like, there's some not new, but some lesser known villains that you see in it. So, like, they go to visit Calendar Man. Sounds pretty interesting. And briefly you see Solomon Grundy, and of course Catwoman's in it. So
yes, I saw the Catwoman, and I like that it's I don't want to say the Michelle Pfeiffer outfit, but it's like it's the version of Catwoman that I enjoyed, because incredibly villainous and kind of like current. Loved the original, campy Batman, but at the same rate, it was nice to see the uptake on things,
Yeah.
of just how villainous and things were. So I don't know.
I think in the past, when we've seen this many villains in one show, it's not been ideal. But in the animated, maybe it'll work out. I think it'll be good.
Well, and I think kind of going back to your point, I think the animated series is where it's their bread and butter. And I think they have the ability to make those very strong stories with the entourage of villains, and it works. So that's my thought. Okay, Mighty Ducks.
Mighty Ducks.
You have not seen it yet.
Cav should be here to tell us about hockey. I think that's really what we need.
Who's that?
Cav?
Cav. Yeah. I just need to know if they do the flying V in real life. Does it work? But I will say just briefly that the Mighty Ducks Game Changers on Disney Plus is really fun. Is it something that I always am thrilled language-wise? Harper and I are watching, not so much, but it's also not over the top. It's honestly, it's really good, and it follows a story that's very interesting. Where in the original, and I'm not spoiling anything because I imagine this is in all the trailers. It's been a while since I've seen them, but in the original Mighty Ducks, the Mighty Ducks were the ragtag team that everybody counted out. Nobody counted on them to win, and they pulled it off. And then D2 came around, and they were Team USA, and they were a little more refined, and they were still the underdogs, and the Iceland team was going to get them, and they pull it off. And then they go to Seton Hall and D3, and so it just kind of, each time they're always the underdog, they're always discounted, they're always kind of put in that place. Well, this series, very much like how WandaVision put Wanda, it kind of flipped it on its head, and we see it transition through different things, and we realize kind of the bigger picture. I think that's where we're going to get with Mighty Ducks. Probably not to the level of Wanda and Vision, but the Ducks are not the good guys.
What?
The Ducks have transitioned as an organization, and they are now the anti-heroes.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
okay.
So they have taken the place of the Hawks. And there is a very deep storyline that is slowly unfolding as a background narrative to the actual kids playing hockey. And it involves Emilio Estevez. And so I think just that part of it, that dynamic of it, is fun for all the nostalgia piece of it. Because they keep referring back to, Minnesota Miracle Man, and you created the Ducks, and so it's tying it all in. But I think it's doing it in a current way where something successful was taken over by different ownership, and the philosophies behind it changed. Similar to how the Warren was changed after it was sold, right? I mean, still a wonderful place to go, but things about it have changed because ownership has changed. And so it's very much kind of following that line. So I'm excited to see where it ends up next week.
So did Bombay leave and then somebody else came in? Is that what happened?
I guess, I mean, they haven't really fleshed all that out, but essentially the Ducks were the group of kids that were in each one. It wasn't like a larger organization.
Right.
And then my guess is somewhere between the timeline of the third movie, when he says he's going to go and coach collegiate hockey towards the end, or I guess maybe that's toward the beginning of it. But either way, in that movie where he kind of exits the picture, from that point on, something happened with the Ducks, and like there was an organization created or something. I don't know. I hope they figure that part of it out, because that is the only part of the show that it's kind of like, well, how did we get to this place? I do love that they're using the traditional Mighty Duck NHL jerseys.
Oh, that's cool.
I do think that's pretty cool, especially because the team kind of came out of that series of movies. And I don't know. I think it's pretty cool that they're using their original colors and the duck hockey mask with the hockey sticks. I just think it's cool. So
that's very cool. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the original movies again. I really liked those when I was a kid.
Yeah, you should. Harper and I watched them. It's probably been, I don't know, maybe a month or so. When we found out that they were releasing a show, I was like, "Oh, Harper, we've got to watch this. These were some of my favorite movies as a kid." And I'm sure you're a lot like me in regards to why you liked it. And it was like you see kids that kind of reflect things about you, and you see them being successful, and kind of like the underdog always wins. And for me, that was inspiring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of course, I was jealous I wasn't as good as they were on rollerblades, but that's a different story. We won't go there.
Same problem. I get it.
Yeah. Well, we live in Oklahoma. We don't have anything other than rollerblades to really do that on. So
That's right.
it's a little bit more difficult. But so Harper loved all of the movies. She kind of got over it with the third one and went to go do other things. But then the series has come out, and so far she really likes it. Now, last night we were watching it, and then we switched to Winter Soldier, and I go, "Oh, hey, go get your shoes on," and we had to go. So that was kind of a thing. We finished Falcon Winter Soldier today, but I definitely think it's got a place.
That was rough.
It was. But
we're not there yet. Ducks.
We're not there yet. But I definitely think that it was I definitely think that it has its place, and I think you guys will enjoy it when you watch it, because you have the nostalgia that someone watching it for the first time wouldn't have.
Yeah.
It's kind of got all the feels in it.
Are they releasing an episode a week? Is that how they're doing it?
Yep, every Friday, just like all the other ones that they've done.
Fridays are already so packed.
I know. Matter of fact, the first two we forgot, and we had to watch them on Saturday morning, just for the same reason. I mean, there's just so much going on in terms of shows to watch and when to watch them. There's part of me, though, and I don't know, you tell me what you think of this. There's part of me that enjoys that we're kind of bringing back a little bit of like 80s and 90s TV where you knew that you had to watch it on this day. Yeah. Like, I'm glad we've gotten beyond that in a lot of ways, but it's also kind of fun.
It is, yeah.
It's because I can go, "Hey, Harper, let's eat dinner." "Oh, hey, it's Friday. Let's do this." "Oh, okay." And we're having that family time. And I think that's I don't know. I think it's pretty cool.
Well, I like a certain amount of structure, and it's nice to know I can say, "Hey, it's Friday. I've got a new show I got to watch."
Absolutely.
I think that us being able to binge things is great, but I also think that we miss out on some of the fun. I mean, I guess the point of appointments is it's a shared social experience. We all have that experience at the same time. Right. Me going back and watching, The Office for the 1,000th time, and walking into, a call with you and saying, "Oh, hey, have you seen The Office yet?" Of course, everybody's seen The Office.
Yeah.
So it's everybody having that new experience, and it's having it at the same time I think there's something magical about that.
I agree. And I think Disney is I don't know if you watched this when we were kids, but there was like every Sunday night, there was a Disney movie on, I don't even know what channel, maybe Fox or channel 2 or 6 or 8. But it was like every Sunday at 7. They showed a Disney movie, and it might be Beauty and the Beast. It might be Pinocchio. I mean, it was whatever. But I remember it so vividly because I would be outside playing. My mom would say it was time for dinner. Come inside, sit down to eat. We had like a little so 80s. We had like a little 8-inch TV over the microwave that would get turned on, and we would watch the family movie together while we ate dinner at the table. Now, for me, that holds a lot of value, and I think that's part of why I enjoy how Disney's releasing it, because they've done it since The Mandalorian, and we've enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm with you. I love binging things and being able to like, "Oh my gosh, that was so awesome. Did you see this whole thing? Oh, wow." But then you lose some of it because there's nothing else to do. Like, I love Stranger Things. I'm not going to go back and watch all the seasons. I don't love it that much. Mandalorian, I would. Only because it's going to be so far removed. The last season of Stranger Things, we may, just because it's so far removed. But in general, I wouldn't do that. I
Yeah.
liked Mr. Robot. Same thing. I'm not going to do that. It's just too twisted as it is. So, I think I think you're right. I think there's something magical there. And I'm glad that to some degree, if you want to capture it, you can. And if you don't, that's okay. You just wait a little bit and you can watch the whole thing.
Well, and if you're a fan, you can go back and you can
Yeah.
continually relive that. And if you're not, hey, you got the same experience as everybody else. You can sit down
Yeah.
and talk about it. That's great.
If you want, yeah. If you even care to.
We have a nice, I think, balance right now.
I agree. That's a good way to frame it. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. So
I always get mad when shows do this where they release, an episode, a week, and then they say, oh, but you can only watch like the last 5 or something like that. Because if it's a good show, I do want to go back. And especially if it's, something that's got a good full, like overarching story.
yeah,
Sometimes you miss something back in episode 1 that now makes
Absolutely.
sense in episode 6, and you can't necessarily go back
Yeah.
sometimes. So
is that kind of the Hulu model?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. I mean, and then not to like say like that's garbage or anything, because it definitely has its place.
I'll say it's garbage.
Okay, you go right ahead. But it's definitely got its place. It's just not ideal because of what you're saying. So
Yeah.
like for me, there's a show you may have watched it. It's The 100. It's
Oh, okay.
not it's I really enjoy it. I think it is a fun show to watch in kind of a post-apocalyptic kind of a setting. The only problem that they're running into now is like the next big bad for the season kind of a thing. Like I think they're kind of at a place where there's just not an awful lot to really do. But maybe not. But it's been so I came into it late. Like I was probably I think there might have been 3 or 4 seasons before I ever even watched the first one. So I came into it late and had to get caught up and was able to binge it. And then kind of able to space it out a little bit and watch it. But there are aspects of things that they talk about in season, whatever it is, 7 or 8, that it happened in 1, and I don't remember it. I remember the name, but I don't remember anything about what happened.
Right.
And so in that situation, it would be nice to be able to go back and watch that, and kind of relive that experience. So I don't know if you haven't watched The 100 and you're into sci-fi, which if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching it, my guess would be that you're probably into, some level of nerdy stuff. My suggestion is you should watch it. Like you should find people and watch it. Sorry, I got distracted reading Jesse's hat. No, nobody vandalized this hat. It's all about the Boston, buddy. Detroit's great. I get it. That's your team. But it's all about the Boston. It's all about the Boston. So that distracted me. So I apologize on my mixture of words there. But either way, 100 is fun. It's a good show. And if you and Hannah would ever are in a place to watch it amongst all the other things you guys do and watch, I suggest that you watch it at least season 1. If you don't like
we
it,
started it, and I think she continued it for a long time, even
There you
after
go.
I kind of fell off.
yeah,
And it was one of those shows that was really interesting, like you said, very much science fiction, very much there was a lot of suspense, a lot of intrigue, but I don't know, we didn't have the time for it at some point.
sure.
But I think part of the issue is just, now that we can go back and get the full picture, I think it'd be a lot easier for me to stick with.
I agree, and I think if I were to watch it in the process of it happening, I probably wouldn't like it as much.
Mhm.
Only because the storyline to have 7 days between each episode, I don't know that I would enjoy that because it always ends on a cliffhanger,
Yeah.
right? And so, like even the season ends on a cliffhanger, which I know naturally is supposed to happen, but like there's got to be some level of resolution that happens in an episode, and there just never is. It's always like little Johnny lost his pinky today. What are we gonna do? And it's like
Ugh.
credits, stuff like that. It's just like it's wild. But I think the thing that I like about that show is as science fiction as it is, and as hokey as some of the stuff is, it absolutely taps into the survivalist mentality that's in all of us that a lot of people don't consider is there. But when you're put into a corner and you kind of have to figure it out, the things they do in the show, I feel like accurately represents what people would do in that situation. Making those, not everybody's going to make those hard decisions.
Yeah.
And somehow they still do. So it's just very interesting because we all
tough,
have
but
that.
true.
Huh?
It's tough to admit, but yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I don't know. I think that's part of the intrigue for me. So anyway, that's my ramble for 100. I think you should totally watch it. And if it's not your thing, I understand, but at least give it a shot. So one of the things that keeps popping up, maybe not so much in our chat anymore, but with regard to a game that kind of united all of us to begin with, Destiny apparently is going to have potentially no Destiny 3. I don't think they're going to do that. But what I do think they're going to do is they're going to continue to update things in Destiny 2. They've just recently done an expansion where characters go from using the light to now you have the ability to use darkness. I will say darkness is the devil in Crucible because literally mid-air, you're going to Nova Bomb somebody and you're frozen and they kill you.
Yeah.
So stasis is not as much fun as it sounds. And I hate cold.
I mean, I'm sure it's fun for whoever froze you.
Oh, I mean, if you're trying to do that, it's a blast. But if you're just trying to win, not so much. I watched a video right before we got on here of trials of Destiny 2, and this guy was like, stasis is so awesome. Like, I used to worry about supers. I'm not scared anymore. And it's like this guy, he throws a grenade, the guy freezes, he kills him. He does a melee and shoots out ice and freezes the guy, kills him. The third one, he like puts down a rift and the guy slides into the rift, kills him. Like, it's just like unbelievable. And so they've got a sequel coming that's called Lightfall. I'm kind of excited to see what that looks like because this season, while there's the mechanics of the game are very much the same as they have been for the last several seasons in terms of here's the new story arc, here's the things you got to do. Oh, you got to farm this and farm that and do this. And it is very repetitive. The way that they've told the story of this season takes you all the way back to the beginning of Destiny 2. Essentially, where we lose Cade, it all loops back, like it comes full circle to that moment. And it's both exciting, what's going to happen, how's this going to unfold, because there are some strong feelings, including myself, about a particular character who is still in the game that killed Cade. And so it's like, how is he still around? But you kind of knew it was coming because at the end of one of the seasons, you see Aldrin's casket, coffin, whatever, with a ghost floating over it. And what we know about ghosts with Destiny is they search out the next Guardian. And so it was kind of a given that at some point he would return, but in what capacity? And they started it last season, or maybe even 2 seasons ago. And he was a character that just kind of popped up. Well, now things have come full circle. And it was a little hard to swallow. I'm not going to lie, because I just want to shoot the guy and get rid of him, but can't. And so essentially, because of, as Sam knows, and probably hopefully some other Destiny people, when a class of a Guardian goes, a class of a Guardian comes back. So essentially, a Hunter left, Hunter returned. So Aldrin is the new Cade. So, with that being said, there are some visuals that came out of the last season, or this current season, that for me kind of reignited my desire to play. Having people to play the game with also helps as well. But I mean, it was a good opportunity for me to get back into it and really kind of follow the story and go, oh my gosh, this just came full circle. And even the imagery is full circle, you know, It's wild. So Bungie's doing a great job, but I do think there are a lot of quality of life things they need to improve. And I don't anticipate that Destiny 3 will be coming out anytime soon. The article was total clickbait, and I'm disappointed. But
was that the article I posted?
Yeah. I knew it wasn't true. I just wanted to throw it in there anyway, because they've said many times they're not going to do Destiny 3 anytime soon, at least.
Yes, no plans to release Destiny 3 in 21, 22, 23, 24, or 25.
Yeah.
Could be 26.
So, yeah, they just basically clickbaited us. But but again, I mean, I think Destiny's got its unique place. Do I think it's the greatest game ever? No, but I think it's got a lot to it, and the way that the depth that they've made all the adjustments. I mean, so like, trying to think of another example of the gameplay. So like Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like there's so many different categories and levels to your character, right? Now all of a sudden Destiny 2, you can do all that same stuff with your character. You can add all of these different modifications to make the weapon heavier or do more damage or create this orb or whatever. It's just fun. So I don't even know all of it. Like I haven't even been able to keep up with all of it, to be honest.
So Church 2 recommended a book to me.
Okay.
Blood, Sweat, and Pixels.
Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. Okay, talk to me about
Blood, Sweat,
it.
and Pixels. It's about the process of creating games, basically.
Okay.
It talks a lot about the kind of the bigger studios and how reliant they are on crunch, on having everybody just work and live out of their cubes for the last couple of months of production. Talks about some smaller studios where it's just like one or two guys putting together something on the weekends. But I mean, there's a couple of stories specifically that were really, really interesting. And basically, each chapter highlights the launch of a different game or the failed launch of a different game. And I mention it because I just finished it this week, and one of the chapters is about Destiny, and they talk about Bungie and their process going into coming out of Halo, and what are they going to do for their next big thing. And apparently some people really wanted to do like a fantasy game, maybe like a kind of MMO type situation. And from the book, it sounds like basically all their tools were really designed for first person shooters. So they said, hey, let's make this fantasy game in this kind of different world. And they said, well, but we've already got all this other stuff that's sci-fi, let's do sci-fi. And then they said, hey, we want to do this in kind of a third person situation so you can see more of your character. And I said, well, but everything we've done kind of already does first person. Some people are a bit frustrated by it, but you can kind of tell based on the story, how they kind of moved into, it's still very much in their wheelhouse, but it is geared more as a collaborative social experience. And I think that's something they've done really well that not a lot of other games have been able to capture for the first person audience. Most of the games out there are competitive, and for the most part, this still is a very competitive game, but it's nice to have the collaborative options that we've had, like you said, our group coming together, playing as a team, since I'd say the middle of Halo 3, I haven't had a group really play cooperatively together regularly at all. It just kind of fell apart because nobody did that anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think that having a, like you said, kind of a Dungeons and Dragons type party, and being able to take that party through and gain loot and complete quests, it really scratches a niche for everybody, and I really like it for that reason.
I agree, and I think you touched on something that video games as a whole really do. They bring people together, either from a common interest or cooperative gameplay. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that in terms of a game like Destiny, where there are activities that you have to work together to complete, like a raid or a strike. Like those things are critical for working together, and it makes that shared experience so much more. And for our group, I mean, it was fun to watch Church throw a grenade halfway across the map and make somebody mad.
Man.
Like, I mean, those things, but like, we'll never forget that. It was super fun. And so, it's just, I don't know. I love Destiny. I think it's very fun. It definitely can be stressful at times when you feel like there's got to be a lot to get done to achieve this thing. And sometimes I feel like they set the bar a little high on things they expect from players. But that's going to happen because they don't necessarily it'd be no different than you and I creating a game. We couldn't predict how difficult something would be for somebody to complete until we knew, And so,
and I think with MMOs, there's a big push on the end game. The whole idea of, you do a lot of grinding and looting and do whatever you can to make sure that you're prepared for, the big
Whatever's
boss
coming.
that drops the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done a good job of capturing that same feel of, fighting the big boss to get the best weapons.
Absolutely.
But I agree. I think they make it very difficult for people that don't have the time or the team.
Yeah.
And that's something they probably could improve. But I think they've done a good job of making that all more accessible as time has gone on.
Well, and what I was meaning with the difficulty is, like, for example, 400, you got to get 100% of a task, right? Well, come to find out, it's a destroy all enemies kind of a task, but 100% is only if it's the yellow bars. Well, that's great, but if because there's a drop rate for them and a spawn rate and all that, so sometimes that 100% might actually feel more like 400%.
Right?
and some of those things those are going to happen. I mean, there's just no way around that. I don't think, but I'm not a video game designer either. But I'm pretty sure that's somewhat difficult to predict how difficult it would be for the consumer. Some level of difficulty.
Apparently, I'm going to talk about this book a lot. There's another chapter in the book talks about Diablo 3. And one of the things that they talk about being the essence of the Diablo experience is RNG. It's the random generators, the random drops that you get.
Yeah.
And they talk about how when they first launched the game, essentially everything was random. And what they realized was that is a lot of fun. And it definitely, for those that are looking to essentially gamble, on their drops, that's great. But a lot of times that ends with situations where, like, you've defeated this powerful enemy and the drop you got randomly turns out isn't any good for your character. And so they manipulated the RNG a little bit to make it a little bit more like you don't necessarily always get the best thing for you, but at least it's not something that's completely worthless.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of these types of games, that's a balance they end up having to find is, you want people to be going for it. Like in Destiny, you're always looking for that perfect roll of, that weapon that has just what you want on it. But the chances of you getting it are not fantastic.
No, I totally agree. Funny you would use that specific example. The good Reverend and I were doing a task. Don't quite remember what it was. I think it was a Nightfall or something. But anyway, pinnacle gear. Best gear you can get, right?
Yeah.
I got a 12. So the max light is like 1325 or something now. So I got a 1299 item. I'm at 1303. I can't use it. It's completely worthless. So yes, I have experienced that frustration as well. It's how it goes sometimes. Okay. So I feel like at this point we have to talk about how nature finds its way. And what I mean by that is there's a New York Post article that states, and I quote, Elon Musk's firm Neuralink has the tech to build a real Jurassic Park, according to the co-founder. I don't know if he's actually seen Jurassic Park. What
I
do you
mean,
think?
I believe that he goes on to say that it wouldn't necessarily be. It's more like Jurassic World, where we don't have the actual dinosaurs. We have dinosaurs that we are creating based on what we think they should be. And so it's actually, I think, a worse scenario than you're picturing.
I agree.
So
So essentially, like a blue or whatever, where it's a velociraptor that can be communicated with, coordinated with.
I was going to say more like the, what do they call it? The Indominus Rex or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that one too.
Yeah, the big scary monster that technically was not a real dinosaur, but it's kind of dinosaur-like and also is invisible and ferocious and all the terrible things. Yeah.
Yikes. Well, to quote Samuel L. Jackson, hold on to your butts. I think that if we get to that place, I'm a little concerned for the world.
Yeah, I get that.
The thing I never understood about Jurassic Park, just the theory of it, was that they had pterodactyls.
Yeah.
In one of the movies. I can't remember which one it was. How'd they keep them on the island?
They were inside of a giant cage.
Okay.
I am pretty sure.
I bet you're right.
I'm pretty sure that they had to go through some kind of a gate to get in there. But then also in Jurassic World, they had that big dome that they were all in.
True.
That, of course, the helicopter crashed into and they all escaped from.
Okay, that must be what I'm thinking of then. Yeah.
Well, I think I want to say it was the second or third one where they did go into the pterodactyl pen and it was like a giant cage or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was definitely supposedly closed off, but I refuse to believe that. Yeah.
I agree.
No.
Well, and I just, here's the thing. While I love dinosaurs and who doesn't, I think this is a terrible idea if they go that route. Simply because, why would someone at the top of the food chain create something that's at the top of the food chain? It just doesn't make sense. I
mean, I could see somebody
like
whose
the
company,
SeaWorld of dinosaurs.
Right. I mean, I could see somebody who makes a flamethrower for himself might also make himself like a pet dinosaur.
Fair enough.
But I don't know that they would necessarily take the risk of making a theme park. I don't know. It's a tough one.
You know what, though? At some point, it's going to go out of his hands. Like, he's not going to be running it forever. Somebody's going to take it over.
Probably
they
Disney.
Will have the technology.
And they already have it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the scarier part to me.
They even have the park. I've been there.
There you go. So see, it's a thing. We're all dead. But yes, so apparently that's the concept that Elon Musk is working through with his tech company, Neuralink.
Have you played the Jurassic Park game, by the way?
I have not.
That new one is the Park Builder. Is so much fun. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
I mean, again, it shows you how broken it is, but it's so much fun.
Well, I mean, anything that I get that we make things that can kill us all the time, but something with a brain that can kill us kind of worries me.
Right.
Like we make cars on a regular basis. Those things can kill us. They don't have their own brain. Right. They rely on us to be in motion.
When the robots decide to take over, it'll be for power, not for food.
Right, and it won't be for dinosaurs.
Right.
It won't be. So, all that being said, we've got some movies that are coming out, which I'm kind of excited about, but it sounds like they are delayed. So, Top Gun, Mission Impossible 7, and a few more have gotten later dates. Top Gun has been moved from July to November. Mission Impossible is scheduled for next year in May. And then I guess they're doing a Mission Impossible 8, which is delayed until 2023. To say that I'm disappointed that Top Gun isn't already out
Yeah.
is an understatement because the trailer looks amazing. But I also know that me personally, I'm not ready to go to a movie theater to see it. And if that's what they're planning on doing, I can understand why they would delay it. But it is disappointing. So I don't know. I'm a little. Oh, they're going to do it on IMAX, no less. Can you imagine that? That's like, I'll just take a barf bag with me because,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yikes. I don't know.
Everything's getting pushed still, and hopefully we're coming out of it. I'm still really excited about Free Guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of that one. It's the new comedy with Ryan Reynolds, where he's
Okay.
a video game character.
What is it? Oh, where he's got he's like in a button up and he's got the glasses. Is that right? Yeah.
He's a video game character that realizes he's a video game character.
Okay. Yeah. See,
And it sounds
that's
amazing.
fun. Yeah, that does. The trailer had me laughing pretty good. Like I thought that was pretty good.
I believe
so it's kind of like a live action Wreck-It Ralph.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it's been pushed to August at this point. They keep originally, I think it was supposed to be December and then May, and I think now they're looking at August. But
well, and I think the thing to remember, these movies being pushed back is because of how they want to release them.
Yeah,
and understandable. You know, I mean, Disney I think has had success releasing directly to platform for a fee. And I think HBO has also seen success with that. But that can't be the way that we do it consistently, because if it is, 15 years from now, there's not going to be any movie theaters anywhere.
yeah.
And I think similar to how we were talking about games, while for me now going now, I'm not super ready for it, but at some point we'll get back to that place where we can go to a movie theater and not be as concerned about everything and share that experience together, because that's part of it. You know, we as a group of friends have gone to see several movies together and shared that experience with each other and enjoyed it, laughed, been upset, been frustrated, whatever it may be. But we've done all of that together, and that's part of it. And I would hate for that to just go away, you know?
Once you've cried through Endgame together, you're friends for life.
I'm saying, man, like I was wiping tears. Somebody was cutting onions in there. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Yeah. And the worst part of it for me in that, because I knew what made me upset about the whole movie, or not upset, but made me shed tears in that movie. To then have my daughter want to watch the movie and have to relive it, I was like, oh my gosh. And I lost it again. I mean, I was unconsolable for about 15 minutes afterwards. Of course, you know, Harper being Harper says, "Why are you crying, Daddy?" You know, like I can't explain it. I gotta go. You know, and so, you know, Joan, my wife's laughing at me. You know, she understands because we talked about it, but it's just the depth of that movie. Oh my gosh, it rips your soul out and throws it on the ground, stomps on it 15 times. But it's so good. But that experience alone, just being with the people that I trust the most to be my friends in that moment, that was special. You know, that's something that I hope we can get back to. I would love to go see Snake Eyes and you know, see just all the things that are coming out and can come out, you know. I love the fact that there is a Dungeons and Dragons movie coming out. Yeah. It's unfortunately been delayed till 2023, but from a movie standpoint, I think it could be pretty cool.
I do worry about just the industry in general. I mean, there's not a lot going on right now, and a lot of businesses are kind of calling it quits. So, Earth 2 Church went to what were they doing? It was there's an Alamo Draft House near his home, and they were doing a Lord of the Rings theatrical versions. I think it was over this past week, maybe before. where they had the actual movie, and then at the end they had like a Zoom call with some of the actors. And I mean, not everybody could participate, but it was still a kind of a semi live interview related to the thing. And I would like to see more of that type of experience.
Sure.
I mean, obviously
Sure.
that's probably not going to happen for all these really big movies that are coming out, but I think that'd be an interesting way for some of these movies to get people back in again.
Well, and they've done that, and there is not Brandon.
Oh,
They
hey.
have done that in the past with kind of, I don't want to say indie released films, but warning, Airbag. But indie released type things. Like there was when Lance Armstrong was still racing bikes or had just kind of recently been removed from the pro cycling circuit and was doing mountain biking. There was a show. There's two of them, but it's like race across the sun or race across the sky or something to that effect. And it's essentially the Leadville, Colorado mountain bike race, 100-mile bike mountain bike race, and it starts in Leadville, Colorado, and they go up the mountain, back down. Whoever gets down there first wins, and whoever doesn't. But it's a qualifying event, so like you have to do the lead man, which is, I don't know if it's a 100-mile run or a 50-mile run, same course. I mean, there are like steps to get to this, and so it was such a huge thing that they released this movie, and Mitchell and I actually went and watched it together. And at the end of it, they had wasn't necessarily a live Zoom like what you're talking about, because that wasn't so much of a thing back then, but it was, they were in an audience that had all watched it together, and they were taking Q&As. And you got to be a part of that by watching it.
That's amazing.
I would like to see some of that as well, because I think, especially with so little going on, I think that's a good way to kind of give back to the fans for supporting. But I also don't expect it. It just would be cool.
Yeah.
So
that's all I'm
very
saying.
cool.
It was a neat idea. Apparently they had a lot of fun.
Yeah. I bet that would be fun.
We need an Alamo somewhere around here.
We do. We have one 4 hours away in Dallas.
Not close enough, but okay.
I agree. We need an Alamo, and we need the Warren to bring back the Warren Grand Burger for Cav.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, I don't know where not Brandon went. So we are going to put up something that will clue you in on where we're going.
Uh-oh.
There it is. The Wanda spoilers. Now, Sam, being the super creative person that he is, realized at 1 o'clock that we hadn't created a Winter Soldier one. And I said, let's just use the Wanda one. Why not? Because it's so epic. It's so great. So
they're wizards. They don't have hats.
Exactly. And knowing Sam, the way that I do know Sam, he would totally be making one if we had said we totally need it. But there was no need. That's a bunch of work for no reason right now. So as you see, the spoiler sign is up for me, it's the upper right-hand corner. I hope it is for you as well. So while that's up, you need to understand that you are going to encounter spoilers. Yeah, it's right there on that side. You're going to encounter spoilers at this time. They are going to be plentiful, I hope. Are you caught up on Falcon Winter Soldier?
We are, yes.
Okay. Now, we're only 3 episodes in, but they have been
are we 3 or 4?
Lot. 4. Sorry, 4. They have been a lot to take in. There has been a lot of stuff that has happened. So, interesting enough, and I'm actually really excited about this. This show picks up after the snap, after the unsnap or the glitch, where everybody's come back. So it's after Endgame, which we knew it was going to be, but it's always questionable in my mind where the show's going to pick up. What's the storyline that they're going to tell to tie into that? And the thing that I think they have done a phenomenal job of is tying in the very end of Endgame. when he tries to give the shield to Sam.
Oh man.
That theme has been going on the entire show so far. And if you've not watched it and you're listening to this, you might as well turn it off because I'm just going to blow it right out of the water. Sam does not carry the shield.
Ugh.
And that is something that I know will come out at the end. You're seeing it now in the transition. But Sam, what are your thoughts so far on what you've seen? I don't want to dive too deep and not let you speak.
I mean, dive away. To be honest, that first episode, I wasn't 100% sure what they were doing. I mean,
Agreed.
like you said, they were really focusing on, his struggle and him giving up the shield. I feel like one of the things I like about all these shows and these movies is I feel like there's so much universe behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, that we either, don't get to see or that, just you assume is there. Excuse me. And I think that first episode, we could have had, an entire season of just Falcon or just Winter Soldier talking about their struggles and how they've been trying to deal with everything that happened. And I was waiting on them to come together for the, that one unifying moment where they're like, hey, we're a team now. And
Yeah.
spoiler alert, we still don't have that. They're still not a team. They still don't want to be a team.
Yeah.
Which I think
And
makes it more fun.
I agree. And it ties it together from the last time they had to work together.
Yeah.
It's just a continuation of that. And I think that is part of the beauty of the show because it ties in where those characters are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's important that's there. If they were just like all buddy cops and it wasn't a thing, I don't know that it would be very good. I mean, I really don't. I think they'd really have to fight a lot to make it good. But yeah, the first episode was really heavy. I really wasn't expecting it. I did like the look at the fact that Falcon has a family. He has struggles that he deals with and he is dealing with. I thought that was very powerful. The other thing that I think about the first maybe 2 episodes of the show is that they've tied in current conversation without beating you in the head with it.
Yeah.
And I always feel like when you're in a place to educate somebody about something without being judgmental, people tend to receive it better and they can maybe take that information and perhaps change a perspective or change a habit or whatever, I support people's rights to throw it all in your face and you just deal with it kind of thing. I mean, that I get that, but I always appreciate shows that speak to the current issues without really having to speak to the current issues.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I thought was very powerful when they found the African-American super soldier was, why didn't I know? Why is his history not known? To me, that spoke volumes about a lot of things that have happened as a society in America, and perhaps even worldwide, with marginalized people being a significant part of history and not being known for it. And I thought that was a great way to handle that. I thought it was amazing. It also directly tied in, at least in my mind, and this may be a stretch, but in my mind, it tied into a lot of the conversations we're having now with vaccination type of things, and not to go that route, but just the fact that people are hesitant because of history of people being experimented on, specifically Tuskegee, which is one of the favorite parts of World War II history that I love. But at the same rate, it's something that happened that was given to the people that were doing fantastic and amazing things, and that was the result. They were poisoned by the people they were trying to help and honor the flag that they had on their shoulder. And so for me, those 2 items, when they happened, like, that was very profound to me. Only from the standpoint of, it made you kind of question some things. I thought that was powerful. The part that I'm struggling with is the new Captain America. I
Ooh.
I don't know if it's the acting or if it's the character, but I'm not a big fan. And not because he's replacing Cap, but just like the character as a whole. It's just I don't know. There's just something there that I know is going to be fleshed out at a later date. It has to.
Well, you saw yesterday's, right? Where
I
he makes
did.
the turn.
I did.
So,
yeah. So he's
I think
shifted gears.
I think they've been setting him up from the beginning. I mean, nobody wanted him to replace Steve Rogers. Nobody really expected him to be a new Cap. But I mean, I think, and you've seen, I don't know if you've seen the articles or not, but apparently the actor is actually getting hate mail because of the way he is playing the character. But I mean, they've clearly been setting up as a villain from the beginning.
Absolutely, they have. I mean, from the time that you learn about the Flag Smashers, and then you introduce the new Captain America, there's just, I mean, there are connections there. Now, maybe it's not, obviously, he wasn't a super soldier until the very end of this episode. But he also had a lot of abilities.
He did.
I mean, bouncing that shield off and catching that's something.
He was superhuman before he was superhuman.
Correct. And like we saw in Captain America, the serum enhances who they already were. Steve Rogers was a good person, never backed down from a fight because it was the right thing to do, never picked a fight. That was amplified when he became Captain America. And I think you're seeing in this situation, as Hannah okay? Did she fall?
Can you hear that?
I heard it. Is she okay?
Everything's fine.
Okay, good. But I think with him, I think there's a level of competition.
If you wait, I can do that later.
She says, no, I got it.
Sorry.
You're fine. No, that's part of it, man. My kid could come in here at any minute. She's just sitting on the porch out here. But, it's one of those things for the new Cap that I think he's now taking that serum and it's enhancing the competition in him to be the best. And I think that's a problem. I think his ego is going to really cause a lot of things for him. But again, I think you're exactly right. They've been setting him up to be a version of a villain from the very get-go. Yes, he's a war hero. Yes, he's got medals of honor. Yes, he wants to do the right thing for the U.S. and for the world. Yes, he wants to be an Avenger. But the way that he's going about it says everything about him. Well,
and they've been talking a lot about, the scars that the emotional scars that Bucky carries around, and the work that Sam has done trying to, help people with PTSD. And I think that's really the main thing that he is lacking, is he hasn't accepted, what all of his years of service have done to him, and he hasn't tried to work around it. And that's, I think, what they're saying is, he's not a bad person. He's really struggling emotionally with things that now that he is as powerful as he is, he doesn't have to. And that's a concern.
And the serum's amplifying those demons, and that's another point that I had neglected to say, and I'm glad you said it, is, again, they've been subtle in how they've addressed it. Sam being a counselor to veterans is something that my hope, a veteran that would need it, would hear it, would see a hero, would follow that lead. Because there's a lot of things about, and when people talk to me about comic books, Comic-Con, they see me kind of light up. They know why I like it, because by the end of the conversation, I've told them why I enjoy going. But one of the things that you hear often in the panels that you go to is, your character helped me through this time. Your storyline helped me deal with this. Jason David Frank is a prime example of that. I've sat in a couple of panels of his, and the empowerment that his fans have because of the characters that he's played as a Power Ranger are astronomical. Karate Kid panel, same thing. Daniel LaRusso's and all of them. The panel alone spoke to how those people inspired good in other people. And I think that's something that is part of the reason why I think comics and superhero movies are so magical, because they can talk about the things that we're uncomfortable to talk about, and you hear them from a non-biased party, and it just clicks. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
Because I think you bring up a valid point with his trauma, the new Cap's trauma, have to be affecting some of the decision making, and he alludes to it in this latest episode. Yeah, I have three medals about the worst day of my life.
Yeah. Oh,
Not something
been
that
through
most
so
people
much.
think of, because people that haven't been in that think, oh my gosh, what an accolade. I mean, Medal of Honor is huge. Oftentimes we forget what happens to get to that place. And frankly, the average civilian, myself included, is not going to know what that really looks like. It's one thing to talk about it, but experiencing it is something totally different. And so I think you bring up a very good point, because again, we're hitting the issues that need to be talked about in a way that people can take it in, stew on it, and decide what they want to do. And it's not the narrative of being canceled. It's not the narrative of you're wrong. It's, this is what this character is going through, and if it helps somebody down the road, I think ultimately that's the goal. And so I've really enjoyed it. I mean, the thing I really like watching Bucky go through the transformation of being Winter Soldier to Bucky.
Yeah.
That was super cool to me, only because of the trust, that the vulnerability that he had to have. I just thought, oh my gosh, that's so cool. You know, he was scared. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And then you see that it works, and the relief that he feels, the peace that he has to have from that. Amazing. I am interested how, is it Fukujima? Is that the guy?
I don't know the name, but yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Well, the older gentleman that he's kind of befriended. And we find out later it's because he's killed his son and he's trying to right that wrong. But he killed the son as the Winter Soldier, not as Bucky. So I'm very interested to see how that unfolds. Because obviously he was in the wrong place at the wrong time in that situation.
Yeah.
But what was the, there's more to that story, and it's just got to be there.
Well, and will his recovery be complete if he doesn't eventually make peace with this guy that he has now befriended, but not confess to him what he did? I think
very good point.
A lot of this is really talking about, again, mental health and support for people that, like veterans, and in his case, someone who has been through a very traumatic experience that no one else could really understand. How do you come back from that? And he's done a great job, but like you said, they can't just be, it can't be a buddy cop. The
right
thing about Anthony Mackie in the previous shows, Sam's always been this really funny guy, and when we saw him at conventions, he was very hilarious. He was not serious at all, and I think the way that he has portrayed this character is amazing. And
I agree.
Just fantastic.
I agree, and you see the human side of both of them, and I think that's important
exactly.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Because Bucky has superpowers in terms of being superhuman, but he does not. He has a suit, and you see the armor comes off in the latest episode for both, and I think that is very, very unique to see a hero being unarmored at that point. Because even though Bucky has all of these talents, if you want to call them that, all of these experiences, he's still human in regard to all of the things that he feels and concerns that he has, the loyalties in which he follows. He didn't want to fight the Wakandan soldiers,
Right.
but in terms to get to where he needed to be, he did. You know, and we learned something very cool that they can literally disarm him with their fingers. It is amazing. I was like,
I mean,
what
I'm
is she
assuming
doing? And then all of a sudden the arm just fell. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's awesome.
It's kind of like pressure points, but really
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
just whatever the little connections are for his arm.
That's what I thought she was doing. I thought she was going to like stabilize him to where he couldn't move.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden his arm fell off and he was like, did you know they could do that? And he goes, nope. So super cool.
That
But
was very cool.
that's another part of it I thought that was very cool is they've tied Black Panther into it.
Yes.
That is pretty neat. Which makes sense because sorry, there was a bug. It makes sense that they would, but it's just how they've done it. It's impressive.
It is. I think we weren't sure how they were going to handle that, and the fact that he is now, or his character, even though the actor has passed, that his character is still central to this storyline, because we haven't even talked about Zemo. Zemo apparently killed him.
Yeah,
and
well,
is now-
Zemo's the one that at the beginning of Civil War, if you haven't seen it, blows up the UN, I guess is what it was, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Blows it up through a bomb, kills T'Challa, which is Chadwick, his character's dad.
Right.
And so that's how we get to the Black Panther that everybody knows, because
Right.
the Black Panther that died was the king.
Right.
And
so now we've got Zemo as a central character, and he keeps going back and forth between helping and hurting. We don't know if he's going to be, like, originally it seemed like he was going to be, the eventual villain, and then now we've got villains everywhere.
The interesting part about Zemo is the fact that he behaves very much like someone who has some degree of super ability.
He does.
Just in things that he does, how he moves, those things are very interesting. The other side of it is the fact that, like you said, Bucky goes and sees him alone. He tries to use the old words to get him to switch to the Winter Soldier. He's unsuccessful in doing so, but is still working behind the scenes against the good guys, so to speak.
Right.
It makes me wonder if he's the power broker.
Oh.
Maybe not, but makes me wonder.
There is a lot of mystery.
Absolutely. Well, and I love the fact that he told the kids those guys are bad. Don't tell them anything.
I know.
Oh, that's so tricky. That's so tricky. I also really like the diverse cast that they've got. I think it's impressive, all the characters they're bringing in on the Flag Smasher side of things. Love that the leader is also the leader of Enfys Nest in Solo. I think that's amazing because I loved that character, so it's cool to see her in that role again. But it's also, again, telling a story of people being disenfranchised by other people. Where in this case, they have the glitch or the snap, and, we have society, but still it's interesting that they're able to do these things, speak to current issues, and it's not hitting you over the head. It's getting you to think. It's getting you invested in the characters. Perhaps it's changing a point of view. I think it's super cool.
I think they've been doing a really good job. I didn't know how they were going to follow up the quirky uniqueness of WandaVision. Every episode's a different time frame, and from a emotional standpoint, having to deal with all that loss was very difficult. But now we're moving into this. Okay, so everybody's back, but we've still got all of these people that are displaced. We all still have all these kind of intrinsic issues that we haven't been dealing with, and
Right.
how do we come back from
Right.
everything that's happened? And it's been great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, the last thing that I will say about this show is the fact that I loved the counseling exercise that they had to do together. I
Oh,
get
it's so
that it
good.
was I get that in some levels it could be offensive to others. I can totally understand that, because if you've gone through an experience like that, it can be it's designed to break your barriers down. Um, but at the same rate, you have two, in my opinion, world-class actors playing it out as if they were actually those characters, and it's epic. And how they're pointing out how uncomfortable they are. Like, it was just perfect.
It was.
I thought it also spoke to a huge issue that will have to be dealt with sometime in this series, and it's the fact that Bucky says, if he was wrong about you, he was wrong about me, and that is a guilt of redemption. And I think that it is something that will come back up. I think it's going to have to, and I think it's going to be crucial to the show's development to not let that go. But that was one of my favorite parts so far, as well as, you're probably not going to move the seat up, are you? No. Which was completely inverse from the first conversation where they asked to move the seat up. Some of the stuff that Marvel does with their movies and the shows is just so impressive. Because if you didn't pay that much attention to that particular scene in that movie, you're not going to catch it. It's just funny, but you don't understand why it's funny. You know what I mean?
Right.
I
think in the beginning, Sam's got the shield. You just kind of assume, well, so Falcon obviously is going to take on, the role. But I think he and Bucky both have that humility that they've been granted through terrible experiences, that really makes them both worthy. And I think you're right. That moment where he says, what if Cap was wrong about me? And he's constantly trying to distance himself from who he was, or, prevent himself from, going too far. I think those are the traits that the new Captain America, that Walker just doesn't have. And that's why we know he's not going to work.
Yeah. And I think part of me hopes that at some point we get to a place where one of them does take over the shield. I think we will. I just think by design that makes sense. But again, I think it's very interesting to watch the development of both of them, to recognize that they're both dealing with their own things, and that those things very much speak to the way a lot of people are feeling and in living life right now. And I think that's the unique thing about comic books and comic book movies and those kinds of things, is they have that way they can do those things without a lot of say so. Because if you, going all the way back to Iron Man 1, the items in the cave, that was very much current conversation when that movie came out. Those cave activities that were occurring in Afghanistan and other places, those were occurring on the internet, on YouTube, it was an ongoing thing. So it made sense that they talked about that to some level. And so I don't know. I just think it's a very important show, and we needed it after kind of the wonky WandaVision that redeemed itself towards the end, because you recognize every single thing that you've witnessed is really just, in many ways, a stage of her grief and her coming to terms with the situation she finds herself in. So again, another valuable thing, that in a time of COVID and shutdowns and loss, that people have an outlet of something that they can watch and hopefully feel at peace knowing that they're not alone. And I don't know, I'm excited to see where it goes. in the next coming weeks. I think it's going to be good. I also think, for kind of the same conversation, Mighty Ducks, really excited about where that's going to go for the same reason. It's a feel good kind of a thing. You're rooting for the underdog. You're seeing the redemption of somebody. I think it's a good thing. It's more of a family friendly version of it than Falcon Winter Soldier. But at the same rate, it still speaks to those conversations. So
some of the stuff we're getting into with Falcon and Winter Soldier is kind of dark. This
Very
last
much so.
episode where Walker completely loses it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Tell me about it. I'm going to have to start pre-watching it before I watch it with Harper.
Yeah.
Thankfully she kind of tunes out at certain points, but still.
I think that with Civil War, the reason it didn't sit real well with me is because they isolated the conflict down to basically Bucky's bad or Bucky's good. And in the comics, the whole concept of the Civil War was more of a, what does it mean to be a patriot? What does it mean to be, what should the government do or not do? And I think this is actually going more towards a lot of those questions that
I agree.
Like, if I were younger, I would not understand on any level.
Right. Well, and I think the comic books, because I've read that series, it's been a while. Yeah. But if I remember right, there was a lot of time spent on the Sokovia Accords. Not necessarily that, I don't even think they were actually called that, but it was all about the government overreach of registry versus not registering super powered individuals, and trying to identify those people. I think this, that you're right. I mean, every character dealt with it. It was like, reveal your identity, be registered, or you're an outlaw. And there were battles in between those. And one of them would have been Cap, Iron Man, those kinds of things. But in general, the movie, I don't think, lent itself to that, primarily because the majority of people would not have had a frame of reference for any of that, and it was just progressing down that timeline to introduce other characters. But I agree with you. I was really disappointed in Civil War that the explosion that occurred that started all of this and then the Wanda side of it didn't happen according to comics. Yeah. Like, it was the New Mutants and it was all those, like, it was a situation that was totally different from anything we saw. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's so cool. But I also understand why they didn't do that.
Yeah. I just mean from a core concept, they isolated it down to a more personal level. And then in this show, like, they're going into how the people have taken the serum now are part of this, stronger class of people, and how they can't be better than everyone else, but they feel like they are better than everyone else. And should people in general be separated out like that? And
no, I agree.
It's a difficult conversation to have.
It is, because you see that conversation unfolding in our lives now with regard to vaccine, no vaccine. Yeah. That's just a simple example of it, and we don't have to get into it, but you see that conversation happening. And that's a really deep point that I had seen. I caught it, but I didn't catch the way you did. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Wow. Again, another reason why we need to watch these shows, and we need more of them, because they speak to people in so many different ways that are beneficial. And, I love it. So that being said, Sam, I don't know that we can top that. That was probably the greatest conversation you and I have ever had. and I just don't know that we can top it. And I think we need to save the rest for next week, if that's okay with you.
Of course. Yeah.
All right. Well, great. Well, guys, this has been episode 178 of Gather the Nerds Live. We didn't introduce ourselves because, we're so famous. We just know that you know us. But just in case, that's Sam. I'm Nick. Cav is somewhere playing soccer, hockey, or something. And
soccer, hockey. Yes, that's it.
And Church is worrying about his airbag in his car. So I don't know. Earth 2 Church, not sure where he's at. Somewhere in a place called Colorado. I hear it's majestic. And so that's going to do it for us. We will do our very best to not let life interfere with us coming back next week for you. But if it does, please stick around. We will always try to circle back and come back to you. But I appreciate anybody and everybody that's watched. I know Sam does as well.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point in time, we're going to see you later. So Sam, I'll let you sign off.
Bye. Hannah's not evil.
Hannah's not evil. And I'll see you guys. Have a great one. As church would say, be kind, guys. See ya.
See ya.